That sounds great to me. No surprises.
We have quite a bit of candidate literature over here for anybody who would like that. And we have some of the local organization handbooks that were left from the latest No Kings route too, if anybody's interested in those.
I just need to, I have to leave before 7:30, so don't take it personal, okay?
Okay.
I'm just helping host the family from.
We'll just blame it on her having to leave earlier. We're just going to blame it on you.
Yeah.
Isn't technology the best? At least we can get this view.
It's actually a great idea. We should have all the actual candidates who are here introduce themselves to the crowd.
Speaking of opening, I like that you said that as one walked in the room.
Yeah. Agreed.
Want to introduce yourself? Are we doing that?
Yeah?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
We got a minute.
My name is Dana Toole. I'm running for Senate District 41, and I guess all of us are introducing ourselves, so.
Just the candidates. I'm killing time.
Hi, Dana.
Yeah, hello.
Ben, you want to go next since you're next in line?
Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Ben Kuiper. I'm running for the House in House District 81. So late today, I was dropping off the first of my signs. It's a very exciting milestone.
Yeah.
You see them around, they're the light blue ones. So
Okay.
thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Gambalkenberg. I'm running for House District 84. I just slipped my signs under Dear Potato's door. Hopefully she gets them in the morning.
In the back working on our tech is Kevin Ham, who's running for the PSC.
Working with electricity and technology, it's all going sideways.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up.
All right,
All right.
great. We will just go ahead and jump into this then, since we're a tad behind.
Ben, would you
So-
sit somewhere else? You're taller than the candidates.
Rude.
Thank you everybody for Thank you everybody for joining us for this House District 80 Democratic Primary Candidate Forum. We have our two candidates, Qasim Abdul-Baki and Megan Lane. They are each going to have 2 minutes to do a quick opening statement. We'll go into some questions that we prepared in advance, and then you were all given note cards so you can write down a question that you would like to ask that we'll get to at the end of this little get-together as well. So we will go ahead and get started with those opening statements, and Qasim will have you go first.
Oh, exciting. Hi, everybody. My name is Qasim Abdul-Baki, and I'm running for House District 80, as you probably are aware. And I'm running because I do work as a public defender here, and I'm seeing poverty spread. I grew up moving from state to state. My parents were trying to make a better life for me and my siblings, but they were chasing work everywhere. There were nights that we grew up, when I was growing up, eating cereal with water and ramen, and we couldn't afford prescription glasses, so I just went through dollar store glasses. And so I went to bed hungry quite a few times, and I know what poverty's like. Luckily, I had a public education, and Montana gave me a home and a future. With my degree, I literally went to law school to be a public defender and help people who don't have anybody in their corner. And I promise that that's what I'm going to be doing every single day for every single Montanan, not just billionaires from the out of state and the Gianforte supporters. Right now, it's almost impossible for people to have a savings account. If you're working 40 hours a week, you should be able to put something to the side. It's also impossible, it seems like, to be putting together a down payment on a house. It's getting harder and harder to put food on your table and keep a roof over your head for a family. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not just for people earning minimum wage. It's becoming the middle class. The middle class doesn't even really exist here anymore. Everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. You know, I work as a public defender. I have multiple coworkers who live together. 2 of them are sitting in the crowd today who can't afford a down payment on a house. They went to law school. They're paying their student loans. But in general, I just want to let everybody know I am going to protect our public lands. I am going to ensure we have good union-paying jobs, and I'm going to protect women's right to choose. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that was going to happen. And I'm going to make sure that out-of-state interests and the rich will not be able to use Montana as their playground and shut us out. So I appreciate you guys for coming, and I look forward to serving for you in the legislature.
Thank you, Qasim. All right, Megan.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Really appreciate you coming out. I was afraid there would be no one, and just in case you and I talking to each other, which would be awkward. I'm a Helena girl, born and raised. Grew up out East Helena, actually. My folks have a house out on Hauser Lake. My dad was a builder. My mom was a school teacher. And I got to graduate from Helena High. Helena Public Schools prepared me incredibly well for my life. Got to go away for college for a couple years, graduated from MSU, and then my husband and I were both teachers, got jobs back here in Helena right after graduating, and we felt incredibly lucky. I also get to see the side of life that I think a lot of people are insulated from, in the need that we have in our communities and our families. And I completely agree with Kason that need is growing. It's growing so fast. And I mean, looking at my own children and thinking, there's no way that they could afford anything in this economy is incredibly heartbreaking. So I am running as a school teacher, as a mom, as a wife, as an avid outdoorswoman, hunter, because I truly believe we live in the best place, and I think that some more regular Montanans who just live their life need to be in the room where decisions are being made. I'm not a politician. I've never had that on my bingo card, but you know, middle school teaching and wedding photography, my other job, prepares you really well for politics. I can talk more about that later, but trust me.
Perfect, thanks. So we'll jump into our first question, and we'll start with you, Megan. What ideas do you have to increase options for available housing?
Yeah, this is so near and dear to my heart. As I said, my dad was a builder, so I grew up around that kind of industry. And as I said, I'm heartbroken that my kids right now couldn't stay, even if they wanted to. So, I mean, bottom line is we need more units. We have to build more houses. We have to. But I think it needs to be done in a way that is smart and thinking about decreasing that cost. So we need to look at increasing density of housing, so more apartment buildings, more townhomes. We need to look at making sure that density is starting from where already our city centers are, so we're not just urban sprawling out all the places that we love to be. And I think we need outside the box thinking. I think we need to be looking at things like tax incentives for builders who are building workforce housing. We're not even talking low income housing, right? Like workforce housing, housing for our janitors, for our healthcare workers, for our public defenders. And I think there's a lot of ways that could be come at that we could find common ground with people across the aisle. Because let's face it, we are not going to get anything done in this legislative session if we cannot work with people across the aisle. So that's one of my big passions, is finding that common ground and then building from there. I also know that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. We really need to empower communities to make their own choices about this, because what works in Helena is not going to work in Glendive.
Casey?
Thank you. You know, growing up, like I said before, stable housing was never guaranteed for my family. My father was a carpenter until he had a very tragic accident and was unable to work physical labor anymore. He wasn't a member of a union, so he didn't have any protections. I know what it feels like to wonder if you're going to have a roof over your head. I'll never forget my brother's 14th birthday. We got evicted from our apartment, and my mother and I had to sleep in a house with no electricity or heat, and I didn't know how cold a house could be if it didn't have heat in it. My brothers, luckily, were able to stay with my dad's cousins, but I'll never forget how tragic that situation was. I think as to the policies, obviously the clear answer is we have to increase the housing supply. We have to do it responsibly, just like Megan said. We have to try to increase density in places where we already have city centers, and we need to protect our public lands and the places that we like to recreate. I think that out-of-state billionaires have been buying up housing and pricing us out of it, and we need to protect tenants' rights first of all. But a big thing is we have a Republican legislature that is beholden to those out-of-state billionaires. We have a Republican legislature that has basically all but sworn their fealty to out-of-state billionaires, and we're seeing it time and time again here. My number one priority is going to be housing. There's no question about it. People cannot afford to put a roof over their head. There are a couple of solutions that I think we can work on. First of all, I think we need to give tax credits to landlords who are freezing rent. Second of all, we have to cut red tape, but responsibly. I'm not saying we're gonna have unsafe housing. We have to make sure we're doing it safe but efficiently, and we have to make sure that the people of Montana who work full-time have the ability to live in a home.
Great. Casey, we'll share with you and go back this way. How will you increase the amount of high-paying jobs here in Montana?
We have to start by ensuring that Montanans can unionize without fear of retaliation. I am a union member. I have been ever since I started working for the state of Montana. The only time I haven't been a union member was when that was not available, and I think that it was tragic that the law clerks of all people, the highest educated people in the state of Montana, are the ones who aren't unionized. I also think that we have to make sure that we're investing in infrastructure, not just clean energy jobs, but efficient regular energy, fossil fuels for now, because it's the reality is that we couldn't survive the way we live right now without fossil fuels. So until we breach that gap, we have to make sure that we're doing it cleanly and our infrastructure is as good as possible so that our environment is protected, but we also get good jobs. I want to turn now to the Montana's minimum wage. It's $10.85 an hour. $22,568 a year. There's no way you can raise a family off of that. If rent is $1,000, you're already over halfway through your funds. Right now, you can't go to the grocery store and afford to feed your family on that wage. And so I think we need to increase the minimum wage in the state of Montana. I think that it's time that we do it, and we haven't done enough of that. I think we have to make sure we stop tip credit from being instituted in this state. When I first moved to Montana, I used to work in the service industry almost all my life. And when I found out that people had to get paid the minimum wage and they get to keep the tips that they earned, I was flabbergasted. I think when workers have the power, wages go up. We have to ensure that we support the Davis-Bacon Act, which requires local projects that are being funded by the state or federal government use prevailing wages in the area, so out-of-state workers can't come in. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. Megan?
Yeah, so I am a staunch believer in unions. My husband's, both his folks were teachers, both union members. My mom, teacher, union member. Scott and I have been union members our entire career. And I know that looking at our families, it's the way that we were middle class. Like, there would not have been that without the work of unions. And we're talking wages, we're talking benefits, retirement, we're talking healthcare. And we know that strong communities are built with those backbone wages, with people who have healthcare, with people who can afford rent or their house. With people who have retirement to plan for so that they can move to that next stage of life and still be contributing in their communities and still, right, like, be part of the community. So unions are definitely at the top of my list in terms of things that need protection. I'm so proud of how we've held off the right to work in previous sessions, and I know that that fight is not over. I also think we need to do a better job of connecting industry to education. I had an opportunity to visit the incubator in Bozeman. It's part of the MSU campus, but it's really far away. And it's the first of many buildings they're building. This one is around quantum physics. And everything in that building is industry and students and graduate students who are doing work with quantum mechanics and quantum physics. Talk about like the next level of exciting things in Montana. And so those are students, undergrad students, graduate students, who are working right alongside these scientists and these industries, working on internships, working on research. And so partnerships like that, I think, are phenomenal and have tremendous opportunities to keep our kids here in Montana who want to stay, and also elevate those wages for us.
Great. How will you, or what will you do as a legislator to protect and increase our access to public lands? We'll start with Megan.
Good, because this is another huge one for me. So we feed our family by hunting. We have 3 deep freezers in our garage. Our boys turned 10 this year, so they got to hunt for the first time. And my husband does all of the processing himself. So he makes the salami and the hamburger and all the things. And I honestly, we would not have the quality of life that we do without that year-long supply of meat. I mean, that sounds simplistic, but it's true. We have 2 11-year-olds and a 17-year-old. You go through a lot of food in the house. And our public lands are such a huge part, regardless of whether you're a hunter, it's such a huge part of what makes us want to live here and what makes this such an incredible place. We know that those people from out of state want to come in and they want to break it up, they want to buy it all, and that's because they want that wealth for themselves. Bottom line. But that's our wealth. Everyone sitting in this room, everyone who lives in Helena, everyone who lives in Cut Bank, etc. And so we have to protect it. I know we all are on the same page there, because once it's gone forever. But I also think we really need to look at the investment that we're making in terms of our access and the professionals who their job is to keep it healthy and to keep it, keep us able to access it. So things like Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, different things like that. We need to invest in those fields as well, those agencies as well.
Casey?
Thank you. Of course, we agree on public lands, and I haven't hunted since I moved to Montana, but I did used to hunt with my father when I was growing up. I think that the reason that I fell in love with Montana, I'll never forget. I was driving in, and I saw mountains, and we have hills in Michigan where I grew up, but we didn't have mountains. And I remember pulling over and getting out of my car. And I remember just spinning in circles, just looking at everything. And that was the day I met the guy sitting right there in Missoula. But I think that our public lands are ours. They belong to us. And, Greg Gianforte and his friends are trying to break them up and not price us out, break them up and own them for themselves. But I think, of course, we have to fund FWP and other industries like that to ensure that we do maintain our public lands. But something even more important that has always grinded my gears is the lack of corner crossing in Montana. It is abhorrent that private property owners, millionaires, can own 2 corners of something and block us out of hundreds of thousands of acres of land. This is criminal. It's ours. You shouldn't be able to own a piece of a string and then have the entire yo-yo for yourself. This is where we're supposed to be able to play. This is our beauty. And the 10th Circuit recently overturned a corner crossing ban, but the 9th Circuit hasn't yet. I think our legislature is one of the biggest things I'm going to do is ensure that you are allowed to cross corners, because you shouldn't be able to own something next to something and keep out everybody who doesn't have the money for a helicopter.
All right, thank you. Qasim, we'll start with you. What will you do to continue to increase teacher salaries here in Montana?
So if you show me your budget, I'll show you your values. Right now, Montana's budget does not value our teachers. The cost of living has exploded since the pandemic, and HB 252 is a good starting point, but it's not enough. We have to continue to increase teacher salaries. Of course, Megan is going to be pro increasing teacher salaries. She's got a personal vested interest in it. But you know what? I think we all have the biggest vested interest in public education and our teachers being the best paid, hardest working people to ensure that our society is a free democracy. I don't think we get to the rhetoric that we are at right now if we had funded our education system even more. My brother and my sister-in-law are stuck in the middle of a war right now in the United Arab Emirates. They're both teachers. And they kept trying after they had their second kid to be able to move to Montana, but the salaries and the housing market were not enough for them to be able to raise my niece and my nephew and live comfortably. And so now, because they were sitting there where they were being paid a living wage, they are stuck in the middle of a war. Additionally, there's an inflation cap on our education spending. We need to remove that. That is asinine. That is not how you shoot yourself in the foot like that. You can't cap things like inflation that move back and forth. And so I think public schools are what helped me get out of poverty. If it wasn't for a free public education, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And I'm lucky. I'm really lucky that I get to serve the people of Montana at the Public Defender's Office. And I hope that when I'm done in the legislature, our teachers will be paid fairly and our kids will be educated top of the line, and we won't have to worry about our teachers having to work extra jobs just to be able to keep a roof over their head.
Casey, Megan?
Nope.
Obviously, this one is near and dear to my heart. When Scott and I were graduating from college, we applied all over. We really didn't think we were going to be able to start our teaching career in Montana because of the low wages. For instance, we were only applying where there was an art job, and Scott teaches ceramics, and a science job. And there was 2 openings in Turner, Montana, which it is the middle of nowhere. And they were paying $15,800. Now, granted, this was 20 years ago, but still. Yeah, we didn't even apply for it. We're like, we cannot make that work. We were 2 young single people, no children, but there was just no way. We were lucky enough to get jobs in Helena, and we have an incredible union here that has worked really hard to make this a place that we can live and raise a family. As Qasim said, that has changed a lot with all the other challenges we face in Montana, given the influx of population we've had. But I know that our communities value public education. I know that our citizens across the state recognize the value in public education. So I can be that voice of the person who's in the room every single day with the students, with the families, advocating for why we need increased funding and what that actually looks like in the classroom and in the community.
Our next question, and Megan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I know.
How will you address the overloaded Montana criminal justice system?
So, as I was getting ready for this, and I talked to a lot of people to get ready for this because I am certainly not an expert on anything other than teaching, middle school teaching particularly, so I'm really looking forward to your answers. But the folks that I talked with talked about things like, and I do know this with my whole heart, we have to start earlier. I looked up some numbers. This is according to Montana Free Press. We spend, as Montanans, on average about $100 a day for an incarcerated person. We spend $80 a day for a public school student. So when you look at the investment that we're making, I would certainly much rather my money be going to the future of tiny humans rather than punitive to people who, right, have, generally speaking, had a rough go at life. There's usually not a kindergartner who's like, you know what, I want to be in jail. Like, that's not how it happens, right? We know that this is a systemic problem, and putting funds in early absolutely makes a difference on the other end. There's study after study after study that shows that investments in education and mental health pay off in the long run. I've also heard, and again, I would be welcome to be corrected, but that we aren't in Montana providing some of those wraparound services that people need when they're incarcerated and then as they're leaving. And so we're seeing a lot of reincarceration because of that. And so I think that's another place that we could focus our attention and funds.
Thanks, Megan. Casey?
I don't really have an opinion on that. No. As a public defender, I see every single day that our criminal justice system is failing Montanans. Megan is correct, and it is expensive to house somebody. That's about the average. It depends on the county, et cetera. And we aren't spending enough on education. We do need to work on it early. And I think that there are some ideas I have that might go a long way in ensuring that our children don't fall victim of the criminal justice system. They talk about the school to prison pipeline, but to jump straight to what I think we need to start doing is we need to be smarter on crime, not tough on crime. We're already tough enough, trust me. We do a real good job of locking people up in this state. Montana, I believe, if every state was its own country, I think we're still in the top 30 in the world when it comes to top 10. Okay, I couldn't remember. So we need to be smarter on this. There are things like status offenses. I don't know if you guys know what driving on a suspended license is like, but in this town and throughout the state of Montana, people are being put in jail for months for a status offense. You know how you get a suspended driver's license? You fail to appear for court or you fail to pay a fine, and so they sit in a hearing even though you've moved, then they suspend your license. They're using what used to be the system that we had for warrants for to get people in front of the courts. They're suspending people's licenses, stopping them from being able to go to work. There are people in our jail who have been sentenced to over a year on driving suspendeds, okay? Not getting into a car accident, not reckless driving, okay? We need to take away the judicial overreach and power of lower courts where they're putting people in jail because they're not cooperating with the court's desire to have them show up. We have the people who are upset with them sentencing them. Am I done? Yeah. Oh.
Thanks, Qasim. And just a reminder for all the folks here, if you've got a question, to write it on your index card, and you can just hold it up. Shani or Ben can come around and grab it from you so we can get those questions asked also. All right, now we're going to move into a question that is important to Montanans, but I'm guessing you two probably don't have a ton of experience with. How are you going to support Montana farmers and ranchers, and will mandatory country of origin labeling be a part of your support?
I am all for mandatory country of origin labeling. I don't see why we shouldn't know as consumers where our food comes from. I also believe that supporting Montana agriculture means fighting for the policies that actually help families who are participating in the agriculture market. I believe the agricultural households are receiving some of the reduced property tax rates, but I think we need to make sure that the legislature isn't making it too hard for those people. I also think that agricultural families are how this state was put on the map, right? They are the backbone of our society. They work hard and we have to work hard for them. I want our state to be able to produce good food. I don't want giant corporations to be mass producing things without the quality and care that our local farmers and ranchers do, okay? So I think that we better include the country of origin labels, and I think that we also need to ensure that our families that are working on agriculture are protected, and I will fight for them every day just like I do for my clients.
So my uncle actually owns a ranch and farm outside of Highwood and has spent a lot of time there as a kid growing up. So this is near and dear to my heart. I also got to attend the Montana Farmers Union. They did a legislative outreach a couple weeks ago, and they had a lot of literature for us and also provided their top 2027 priorities for the upcoming legislative session. And it was amazing how many things aligned that would just be such an easy, of course, I'm with you on the mandatory country of origin labeling, as are they. Opposing data centers, that's a huge one for our agriculture and ranchers right now because of the use of water. Huge, huge issue. The right to repair, I don't know how much you guys heard about that, it was huge in the last session, and they were really disappointed that that did not get passed. And I feel strongly that that needs to go through. So they are going to be pushing for that. That's something that I would also support. So that's essentially farmers and ranchers' right to buy the specific tool that goes with the doohickey. That's the technical term, trust me, that allows them to do those repairs on their own rather than waiting for someone to drive 8 hours from the nearest dealer to do those repairs, which is also a huge cost. Also, healthcare is a huge issue for our rural communities. Think about how important an ambulance is and how remote some of our, like most of our communities, right? And so that is a huge push for them, and also increasing telehealth and telemedicine access. So that's just a handful of things that I was like, wow, yes, we need that.
All right. And speaking of healthcare, now that the legislature has lifted the sunset on Medicaid expansion, what would you do in the legislature to improve healthcare access for all Montanans?
So here's the truth. That was a huge accomplishment. Like, I was so excited when that passed, not only for my students, but just, that was huge, right? The problem is that we need to make sure that that is actually getting to the people who need it. And right now, it's not. I have personal experience with helping people get signed up for Medicaid, and I'm a professional, you guys. I have done our insurance my entire life, like jumped through all the hoops, done all the things, and we're talking days, 4 or 5 hours a day, multiple days, to get through the rabbit warren that is getting signed up for Medicaid and figuring out like exactly what to do and talking to someone who can actually help. That is unacceptable. I mean, we are making it complicated so that those people can't sign up. So, very smart guy named Luke Miscavige told me that is actually the legislature's job, is to make sure that those bills that get passed and those things that get funded actually then on the real side of rubber meets the road are actually happening. So that is something that I am absolutely passionate about, is making sure that it's not impossible. And there are very simple things that could be done. Ex parte approval, another very smart lady, Melody Cunningham. This is where you can use information that is already part of systems, so things like SNAP, disabilities, to automatically approve people for Medicaid. And so it could take hours instead of 30 days. And all of us in this room know that when we have people who aren't covered, who can't afford, they end up in the ER, they end up with bills they can't pay, which puts them into bankruptcy, which puts the bills back on all of us that have health care, and it's just this recipe for insanity. So it's a big one for me. We need to make sure the people who need it are getting it, because we funded it.
So I'm just going to jump into what Megan said. The ex parte approval system is a great idea, but we've recently seen our private data getting shared inappropriately by people like the Secretary of State. So I do agree, but if we are going to allow that system to be used, it must be protected from even other government agencies who don't have a right to use it. Because I guarantee you there's a group of people who might be in the majority in our government right now and sitting in the governor's office who would love to be able to look at people's data who are not going to vote for them, or at least they think they won't. I think that our rural communities do need help. I agree that they need telehealth and all of that. Estimates are showing that between 23 and 38,000 Montanans could be losing coverage because of the cuts in the federal, what's that dumb bill that Trump had, including about 4,000 children, elderly folks, and disabled Montanans. We can't do that. It's already hard enough to sign up. And I promise you, if Megan's done it for people, I have too. It is absurd. I'm an attorney, a professional person as well. I have to sit with some people who've never had an email address, who don't even have an ID. There are so many hoops you have to jump through in order to be able to get access. And once people get access, it shouldn't be taken away. I just want to let everybody know that my father had a medical accident when I was younger. He ended up in a coma, and the insurance company eventually cut him off. And I didn't get to see him the last few years he was alive because my family had to fly him to Lebanon, and he died. I didn't get to see him those years. I do hold the insurance companies accountable for killing my father. We need to take insurance company out of being in between people's care and themselves. Just like we want to keep the government out of a woman's right to choose and her doctor, we need to do the same to these insurance companies. They're killing us.
Start with you. How can the legislature work with local and county governments to decrease property taxes?
Oh, that's me. Sorry. First things first, we need to elect more Democrats in the legislature to make real property tax relief a reality. I think that right now the GOP majority is more focused on protecting out-of-state billionaires who are inflating our housing prices. Oh, sorry. And kicking Montanans out of their own communities. Montanans deserve, if you're working full-time or you've made it to the age of retirement and you've worked your whole life, you shouldn't be getting priced out of your own community. But that's what's happening right now. And so I think bringing down the cost of housing through building more supply and stopping out-of-state investors taking over as best as we can is the most direct path. But I also think that we need to provide tax rebates to landlords who are doing the right thing and protecting their tenants by freezing their rent. I have been lucky enough to where I have a landlord who I've been with for years, and I was there with him before still a renter. I was there with him before the pandemic, and I am lucky that he hasn't priced me out of where I live. I think that we need to do things like that. We need to find tax incentives that we can give to, we need to find ways that we can shore up those gaps in the tax code, but we need to reduce these property tax rates as best as we can, because you shouldn't have purchased a home and then all of a sudden, because 7 of your neighbors bought and rebuilt or bought their houses for cash on hand, you can't afford to live there. This is affecting our retirees and our full-time working families, and that has to stop.
Thanks, Qasim.
Yeah, so again, talk to some really smart people because this is out of my wheelhouse. And so essentially, and this is like stuff I knew, but it was like good to get the refresher. So when we see our local, county, school levies, when those start going up and up and up, it's because we have that gap, right, between what the state is providing and what the services need, whatever that service may be. And we can tie all of this right back to the huge tax cuts that they got through the legislature for the wealthiest Montanans, for the billionaires, for the millionaires, for those businesses. And apparently they want more. So I think it's getting people to understand how that all works, because it is so complicated, and being able to talk about it in a way that makes it feel accessible and makes people understand like A plus B equals C, not other things. So that is a huge issue. We need to make sure that we are not giving tax breaks to our wealthiest people. Also, I think that there's the property tax relief that we did get. That was kind of a miracle. I'm like really thankful for the people who worked so hard on that in the last legislature. I think there's definitely room to go. Things like circuit breakers, which I guess is where if your property tax is a certain percentage of your income, it gets basically capped. So we're talking about our people on disabilities, our people with fixed incomes, our retirees. Also, rental, like making it by law that if you're a rental property owner, if you have a rental that you rent to people, you should have to pass on that property tax. You guys' words. The property taxes you're paying less, that should be passed on to the renter. Okay.
All right, we're almost to the end of our questions that we had earlier, but So, win or lose this primary, what do you plan to do to help build the bench and continue to get Democrats elected to office, starting with Megan?
Right. Well, I'm really appreciative that I'm in a primary with a guy like Qasim because we both agreed. We met before I really got started at all and just agreed that we don't want this to be us two. Like ultimately, we can nod along with every single thing the other person is saying, right? Like we've got two great options. So I think both of us are on board with whoever wins. I'm like behind that person 100% for the general election. But in the greater sense, I'm gonna try not to get emotional with this, but like my kiddos are coming door knocking with me. David actually gets mad when I go when he doesn't come, when he can't come with me. He's like, Mom, I'm like, you got basketball, buddy. And my students, like I have former students who came to my launch party and they get to vote for me in this election. And I just think that showing people that just a normal mom who's a teacher can do this, regardless of what happens, win or lose, that's powerful to like know that someone that you know is doing it. So I think just showing people that their voice matters and also letting them know that people are running for the legislature actually care what's happening to them and actually care about what happens, that's so much of it, right? Like those of you in this room, you already know that power of being engaged and being educated about what's going on. But we need to like expand that and make sure that more people are invited into that circle of knowledge and asking hard questions and making decisions that ultimately affect our communities, hopefully in a positive way. So I think I do that every single day in my classroom, and I will continue to do that win or lose.
Casey?
I guess absolutely I'm going to support Megan if she beats me. I hope she doesn't, but you know. I'm going to do what I've always done. I'm going to knock doors. I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to donate, and I'm going to show up for Democrats in the legislature and up and down the ballot. Okay. I think building a strong Democratic Party and bench isn't glamorous, it's hard, but we have to be out there registering more people to vote. When we lead by example and we do make voter contact and we educate voters, that is how we can inspire people to get involved. I think that it is a problem right now. I do think that, yes, we did field a bunch of candidates, like almost every single seat. We fielded more, I believe, fielded more Democrats in races than the Republicans did, which is awesome. But that's not enough. We have to keep working. We have to keep organizing. We have to keep talking to people. We have to keep having events. We have to make sure that people aren't disillusioned. That's why getting on the doors is such a huge deal. When I'm talking to a voter, I am excited to let them know about myself, but also all the things they might not know. There are topics we've discussed here that I couldn't get into more of, but on the doors, you can tell everything, or somebody everything you want about a specific subject, or you can ask them what's important to them. And when you tell them that the Republicans are against that and they're defunding it, or they want to get in between you and your doctor, then that activates people. You know, and it's not just knocking for myself. It's not just knocking for statewide candidates. I've knocked ledge races. I have knocked school bombs in this town multiple times. Okay, I think that we have to be active, and every time we contact a voter, that's a chance of getting one more person in our corner and working hard for us.
So for the sake of time, I'm going to double up because we had a question that somebody just entered, and it was one of the ones we had. But instead of a full 2 minutes, I just want the one-word answer for what is going to be your number one or main priority if elected to the legislature. Casey, you got to pick one.
Affordability.
All right, Megan?
Yep.
Wow. So excited. All right, one of the other ones that we got from folks in the crowd is if you are elected and you have the take-home pay of your ordinary paycheck, or you don't because you'll be serving in the legislature, how are you going to make ends meet for 5 months while serving in the legislature without getting paid from your regular we'll start with Megan.
I am extremely lucky, and Helena schools have it written into our collective agreement. Again, unions are awesome, that I get legislative leave. So I will give my paycheck from the legislature to the school district, and then, so they'll get that money, and then I'll get still my paycheck from the school district. There's no way I could do this otherwise. Also living in Helena, I don't have to leave my family, I can come home every night, get my kids tucked in bed. So I also feel like quite a lot of responsibility in that way of like, I'm someone who's lucky enough to be able to still have my paycheck and still get to come home to my kids every night. And so I can be that person in the legislature who's a mom, who's, just a regular like public servant, in a way that a lot of people don't have that flexibility at all.
So I need to call my union rep and talk to Tim Twardowski, because that's not what I was told, and I work for the government too. I had anticipated taking a pretty significant pay cut doing this, that we don't pay our legislators very much, and I think that if you live in Helena, you don't get a per diem or anything that I know of. I'm not sure. I didn't really look at the job for the salary. I looked at it but I anticipate taking a pay cut. I will also be able to keep my job at the very least. I know that. And I think that that's important. If it wasn't for that, I don't know that I would have it in me to run, because I love my job. I went to law school to do it. But I think a big thing for me is we have to do what we can, right? And if I am going to take a pay cut, I have been doing my best to save money. I did have to spend $400 or $500 on a medical procedure today. That wasn't great. But genuinely, I think I've been saving as best as I can, and I'm going to save. I mean, it's a long time before the election. The election's in November, right? We don't get sworn in till January. So I'm going to do everything I can to save every penny I can. I'm not going to give my sister as much money when she asks for it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so that's my plan.
All right. So we are just about out of time, so we will go ahead and move into closing statements. I am sorry we weren't able to get to everybody's questions, but they are going to pick us out right at 8 o'clock, so I want to make sure we can all get out of here and we can respect our county employees' time. So closing statements, we'll start with Qasim.
Oh, all right. So I hope that you guys had an interesting time tonight and you learned something. And hopefully you learned that you should vote for me. That's what I hope. Now, I don't know if that's what came across or that's the end game, but that's what I'm hoping for. Because I promise you guys, I have gone through my education. I've grown up poor. I know what it's like, and I don't want anybody to have to live through that. I was lucky enough to make it through law school, and now I get to serve my community and the people in it who are most in need. And we didn't get to talk too much about it, or maybe I missed it. We're also dealing with a mental health crisis. That's another part of this criminal justice system. We don't have those wraparound services. We don't have local community-based solutions. We have the Montana State Hospital, and it has been effectively lost a bunch of its funding, right? It's not the right place. It's not doing what it needs to do. And so I think that we need to invest in our communities. We need to make sure that when we have a problem like a mental health issue for somebody, that our community's taking care of them. Beyond that though, guys, I promise I am gonna fight every single day for you. I tell my clients all the time that I swore an oath to represent you, and when I make it into the legislature, I will be swearing an oath to represent Montanans. Not people who are rich, not people who are poor, all Montanans, but I am gonna lean a little bit towards one side on that, and it's not what Greg Gianforte would be considered. So thank you, and I hope you can vote for me. We got lit and all that stuff. Both Megan and I are gonna need money, by the way. That's important, so thank you.
Thanks, Qasim. Megan.
So again, I just want to say thanks for showing up, because honestly, it's really good practice to have to dig into the specifics of what you're going to support and how that's going to actually look, because it can sound, right, it's just like this intellectual exercise until you actually start to get to the nuts and bolts. So that was my goal in preparing for this, was to really figure out some concrete things that could maybe work. Because let's face it, I mean, we could have the blue tsunami and I would be so here for it. Oh man, would I be here for it. But the reality is that we're probably going to be facing, at the very least, a split legislature where we have to work with the people across the aisle. We have to make those connections. We have to understand enough of where they're coming from to find that common ground. And that's something that I'm really committed to because those are the people in my life. And I know we all have them where they think really differently than we do and they're really passionate about how they think. And they think they're right. And right, you don't agree with it, but it's like finding that common ground, I believe with all my heart is the only way that we're actually going to get change in the legislature. We just cannot do it by holding up and only hanging out with Democrats, unfortunately. So I promise to build those relationships. I said earlier, one of the skills as a middle school teacher is I spend all day, every day, making kids care about stuff that they don't care about. I mean, really. And by the time we're done, they do care about it. Because there's always a way to connect with people in a real and genuine way that lets you find that common ground, that lets you find the thing that lights them up, or the thing that, you know, that inside joke. I'm talking 12-year-olds here, so. But that's what I want to bring to the legislature. And I'm doing this for every one of you in this room. I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my students. And I'm doing it for their families. Because Montana's worth it.
Thank you very much to both of you. Thank you everybody for coming out and joining us tonight.
I'm so glad we didn't miss.